In a spirit of Thanksgiving, how's it going, dudes and dudettes? I have a buddy of mine here named Adrian. Okay, I just saw him recently on another podcast that he was on with Taylor McCarthy. Okay, and he works with Homenerds. I know that Taylor McCarthy himself has an affiliation with that company. I think he's working with like Tom Hopkins now, and he's doing 20 to 25 sales a month. And he's how old are you, Adrian? You're like 19, 20 years old.
I'm 19 years old, bro. I just turned 19 a few months ago.
What? What? Yo. So I mean, let's go. I mean, this is just big. So I wanted to definitely have somebody like of his caliber to be a guest on the show. I know we've had on Bob Berg. Bob Berg trains Fortune 500 companies. We collaborated with Courage from Cartoon Network, and we've had a suite of other guests. Today we have Adrian, and it's just kind of like, ha- you know, h- tell me your story, man. Like, how did you grow up? How did you get into sales, man? And then like, how was it that you started getting like 20 to 25 sales, like on average, like a month? And like your vision for the future, but I'll ask you that later. How'd you
All
grow
right,
up? Yeah, and then 20,
all right,
25 a
man.
month.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity, to come onto your platform and express myself. It means a lot for sure. But I'm from Providence, Rhode Island. Smallest state in the country. Some people forget it's even a state. And I'm from a Dominican upbringing. So grew up single mom. Going to school. I feel like I've always been trying to overachieve just because I've been always given limited resources, right? Like I didn't come from like a crazy income family. I didn't have the best role models around me. But I always give it to my mom. I feel like she's the original hustler that I ever met in my life, right? Because she was always hustling back and forth, making
Like
sure
most
that me.
Hispanics, right? Like most people that are like Hispanics, I think, because my parents are both Nicaraguan. For interrupting.
No, you're Nicaraguan.
My family is, yeah, like
That's
my
dope. That's
descent.
dope. Exactly, and I feel like it's I don't know if it's the
I
Hispanic
was
in
born
us.
here,
You
but
were
yeah.
born here. I was born here too. You
No
were born
way,
in
for
Florida.
real? Dude, that's huge, dog. That's so cool. You're like first generation then,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
bro.
I'm first
That's really
generation.
cool.
I have an older brother though, but I kind of grew up
That is
like
so freaking cool, man.
yeah. My two other siblings, there's like a 10-year age gap between them, between me and them. So it's always been kind of like I've been kind of like raised on my own, not like raised on my own, but they were always kind of like other parent models, but like on their own journey. And I went to public elementary school, public middle school. At some point when I was in middle school, I was able to get a good enough grades where I got into a private school, on scholarship, and that was kind of like a big thing for me at the time because coming from a family that didn't have much, that was like my first big achievement, and I remember making my mom super proud. At that time, like I was convinced I was going to go to college, all things of that nature, right? And like somewhere in my like sophomore year of high school, I just caught myself, just hanging around the wrong crowd, not really making the best decisions for myself, right? Just not doing the right things. And long story short, it's, I just started making the wrong decisions. I ended up getting, kicked out of that private school that, I had a whole bunch of scholarship money for just because I was like not doing the right things. I was just getting bad grades, barely showing up to school, just missing out on the opportunity just because my head wasn't in the right space. But I feel like the really most important part there and lesson for me was like, I wanted to really find out and figure out who I was, but in order to do that, I kind of had to lose myself, right? And I kind of had to
Right.
let go of ego, because at the time, I wasn't really focused on the bigger picture, right? Like I didn't really have an idea of where I wanted to be in the next 5 to 7 years. It was more of like where I wanted to be in the next 5 to 7 weeks or like 5 to 7 months, right? And when I was in high school, I was, working a 9 to 5 job, doing things, I shouldn't be doing, trying to find extra side hustles, to make more money and whatnot, right? And I remember my brother was actually the first person I ever saw get into door to door, right? He had actually just, he was incarcerated for a long time in my life, as was my father, And I was kind of just up next and like, yo, is he gonna follow in the footsteps of everybody else? And my brother had just came out of jail. He couldn't really get hired anywhere, wasn't getting a job at McDonald's, wasn't getting a job anywhere. And I remember, this was basically his lowest point. I was in high school, focused on my stuff, on my journey, working my 9 to 5 job, making more than this, grown ass guy. And he eventually a few months later found this opportunity to get into door-to-door sales, right? He was inspired by my cousin that at the time was working for a company called Trinity Solar, right? He was working as an appointment setter rep, but he wasn't closing any sales. He was just just setting appointments, making a lot of money. And my brother was actually trying to get hired by Trinity. They wouldn't hire him because he had like a background of, criminal background and whatnot. So he actually ended up finding an opportunity from like some guy on the internet that he never met in person. The guy mailed him a badge. They met up like once a month on Zoom, and he was like, "Hey, just get out in their field and get me leads." My brother started doing that. He did that for a while. At the time, I was doing my own thing. I was like, "Yo, what's this door to door thing all about? Like, what's door to door? You're selling solar. That doesn't really make sense. You're going door to door to get these leads. That sounds like something that would make me feel extremely uncomfortable." And my brother, one thing that at the time it actually made me really frustrated because I didn't understand why he was doing it. He was really so tunneled in. Everybody makes a sacrifice in order to get what they want in life, right? And he was literally sacrificing his family to get this, right? And I didn't understand what he meant by that. Not necessarily sacrificing us and losing us, but sacrificing the time that he was spending with us. Because believe it or not, I don't, just to be completely transparent, I did, at the time our family was really toxic, right? There was a lot of things going on that just made it like a toxic environment. And being inside that at the time, I didn't understand why he wasn't like, why he was just focused on his own thing. But now I kind of understand it more. And my brother kind of just tunneled in. He was like, "Hey, I don't really care what anybody thinks. I'm gonna just get this going." And I only know so many details about his journey at the time because I wasn't really a part of it. And long story short, fast forward a year later, my brother incarcerated, has no money. He buys like a Mercedes Benz, like this black Mercedes Benz. Like at the time, it was like a 2015 Mercedes. I was like, "Whoa, what the heck? Whoa, what's this?" I was like, "Whoa, this doesn't even make sense." The other day, this guy was asking me for money to buy protein shakes, and I'm like, "Dude, you're bugging." And after that, I'm like, okay, something he's either scamming people or I don't know what's going on, but this is something that even if it's great at the time, I feel like I had too much pride. I was one of those kids. I kind of just wanted to figure it out on my own, go on my own path, down my own journey, start my own thing. And I didn't really want to like humble myself enough to like learn from someone else. And fast forward another year later, 2 years later, he's actually starting his own company. I'm like, what the heck? So he's starting his own company with my cousin, right? That he convinced to leave Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother has set a goal to make $400,000 his first year, right? In solar with his company. But before he set this goal, right? Well, so he set the goal. Then before he started the new year with the company, he went to this 10X conference with Grant Cardone, right? He went to this 10X conference, life change, whatnot. When it was a dope ass seminar, they came back, they 10X their goal, right? Their goal was no longer to make $400,000. Their goal was to make $4 million. They 10X it completely. Then, at that time, I was still like, well, was like he got his own little office space. I was like, this, I don't really know what it is. I was just on the outside looking in, like, I don't really know what that's about. I'm gonna just keep doing my own thing. I'm gonna see if I could go to college, whatever, become a psychologist. I don't know. And you know, I remember that was their goal. Then another year went by. That's like their third year in solar, and they didn't make $4 million, but they netted like 1.2 million. Right, like just their first year in solar, just two guys started their own solar company with like four other reps, just putting up crazy numbers every single month with that direct relationship with the installer. And then that one was like, he bought this white Mercedes Benz S Class, starts living in this loft, starts taking these trips. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? Right. Like this is
Right.
something that, what's going on? Right. Like I'm out here thinking about going to college, sacrificing these next years of my life to not even make enough money to pay off my debt. And, my brother clearly has some sort of sauce. So, I went through, just a tragedy in my life, right? That's how I put it, where I was kind of going down my journey, and eventually, you kind of get to a halt where it's like, no, there's no more making bad decisions, right? There's no more, getting away with things, right? It's gonna catch up with you, right? And I just went through a tragedy where I was, I had made some mistakes. I was completely lost, right? And I reached out to my brother, right? Me and him kind of didn't really get along a lot. We butted heads a lot. We disagreed on a lot of things, right? I had a lot of pride, and I was doing a lot of things at the time that he didn't agree with. But I kind of had to swallow that pride. I put it aside, and I remember, December 2020. I text my brother, right? There are people that are working for him, right? He had an Instagram at the time. People that were working it for him, he was posting them on Instagram. These guys were talking about, oh, I just made $20,000 this week. I just made $8,000 this week. I just made, this much this week. And I was like, whoa, nah, that doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even make, if he's paying, because he had his own company, I was like, if he's paying these people this much, I can only imagine how much he's actually making. And long story short, I slid up on the post. I texted him. I said,
Right.
yeah, listen, I was like, listen, man, this sounds like a great opportunity. I don't know what it is exactly that you guys are doing, but I need in on it as soon as possible, ASAP. And
Was that at
he
Homenerds now?
no, it wasn't at Homenerds.
Because
I
you're
wasn't
you're
at
throwing you're making like 20 to 25 sales a month, like on average.
Yeah, so that didn't start till I was actually at Homenerds, where I've been at Homenerds now for the last for the last 11 months now. But prior to Homenerds, I was
Dude,
working at a
Master.
different company, right? And even when I was working at a
Yeah,
different,
that's huge.
I was 18 years old when I did 28 sales, and that was like, my best month ever. And to be honest, when I was I started with my brother, and I kind of I had a lot of entitlement that was with me, right? I expected kind of to just be a part of this and start making a lot of money instantly, right? Like just, I wanted my first check to be $10,000. And I didn't know what they were doing. I thought it was like a get rich quick scheme, and it's not. Right, this isn't a get rich quick scheme, right? That's something that I had to tell myself really, really early, when I
Dude,
decided to
that's
get
that's serious
into
cash when you're doing
right?
20, 25 sales a month, man. Like that's that's
Yeah,
that's really good for solar.
yeah, it is. It is, and here in the Northeast, it's a great market. And honestly, I'm a man of God as well, and I definitely thank I have to thank God for all this opportunity. I thank my mom for all the time she prayed for me, right? All the times I was straight away doing the wrong things, right? If you align yourself with the things that you want and people that have what you want, you're bound to get it, right? But long story short, my brother hired me. I expected it to be an easy road, right? Door to door sales is the most, it's the hardest thing. It's one of the hardest things ever, right? It's one of the grittiest things ever. But in it is there's just so much personal development, right?
Right.
And early on in the game, I didn't really realize that, right? It took me a while to realize that it's not necessarily about the money, right? It's not about what you get, it's about what you become, right? Jim Rohn says that a
That's
lot,
huge.
right?
Yeah, it
It's
is what you
not about
become.
what you
Mark.
get, it's about what you become. And I was, some people are driven by money, right? Money is infinite. You're never gonna really be happy if you chase money forever, right? And it's those things that are outside the box, that are outside the mind, right? That are sustained by emotion, that are passionate feelings, that are going to allow you to break through, right? Like at the beginning, I didn't really care about, I was 17 years old getting into solar. I wanted, you know what I mean? Like my dad was, somebody that wasn't in my life. I never had the opportunity to make him proud. My brother was someone that at one point in my life was a horrible role model, but now became someone that I could, like, look up to. And the biggest thing on my mind when I started was like, how can I make this guy proud? right? How can I make this guy proud, right? Like, I don't care how long it's going to take me, you know, I don't care what I have to do, but how can I make this guy proud, right? And, you know, even before I got into solar, you know, I was big on personal development, big on, you know, reading the books, Think and Grow Rich, right? So I already kind of had the mentality, right? You know, the big thing is, you know, at the beginning, you don't expect all the rejection, right? All the no's, all the no's, all the no's, right? Like, people, you know, 25 sales is amazing. To get those sales, you know, the amount of people I had to knock, the amount of no's I had to endure, right? It was a lot, right? And it's something that you have to love, and it's something you have to realize that it's making you better and better every single day, right? Like,
Did
I
you
had
just
to.
like knock every day? You get me? Like, did you train in between that process, like together?
so so
And this is really inspiring because like I think this could apply to all walks of life because there's guys that are older than us in the industry, like
right.
significantly older, right? And they're not doing 20 to 25 sales, you know, like every single month. So it's just like that's uh that's just badass, bro, to be able to accomplish that. So
Right.
it's just like how did that lead up? Because I know like this is part of the story. So it's just like the background, and then I think God always had his little hand over you. He never let you go. He's not
Right.
gonna let you go.
Amen. Amen. Always, man. And you know, like, it wasn't, you know, I wasn't, you know, you realize, like, you look at Tom Hopkins, you look at Taylor McCarthy, you look at the top people in the industry, Sam Taggart, right? These were all people that started at one point, and they were not the best people in the industry, right? There was a point they didn't even know this industry, or the industry that they succeeded in, even existed, right? So unconsciously, because it wasn't even my intention, right? Because I didn't think about being a top performer in my company, right? I didn't think about being number one salesman, right? I realized that I had to hone in and focus on, like, okay, how can I make this guy proud, right? Like, that's what it was for me, right? And you know, at the beginning, it wasn't, you know, I was knocking doors, right? Before you could be the best closer, you got to be the best appointment setter, right? Because this job is all about being recession proof, right? Like, I don't,
Mm,
if it 25 sales a month, but if they're all coming from leads, right, then that means, God forbid, all the people that set doors for me, or all the lead generation goes away from me. What's gonna happen? I can't knock doors for myself, right? And if you can only knock doors and you're completely relying on someone to close the sales for you, then the reality of it is, if there's nobody to close the sale for you, you're not going to make any money, right? So one thing my brother instilled in me at the beginning, you know, especially it was during COVID, it was like, hey, a lot of people are losing their jobs right now. A lot of people, you know, are going in modes of crisis. This is an opportunity to learn a skill and be in an industry where you can be recession proof, right? And that's something that went over my head at the time, but it's really significant. So, you know, I was the best appointment setter before I was, you know, one of the best closers, right? Like, I remember knocking doors all day for another guy to go close my sales. The first day that I went out there and hit the field, swear to God, I'm not even lying, I set 8 appointments, just
wow.
knocking, right? But I didn't go out there just, you know, with no knowledge. My brother spent 2 weeks training us in the office, and you know, I took it serious, right? Like,
Right.
something Taylor talks about a lot is being intentional, right? A lot of people are doing things in this world and they're not being intentional, right? And I realized, like, hey, every second of my life, every minute of my life, every hour of my life, it's going through, it's not going to come back. How can I make sure that every word I say, everything I hear is intentional? Right. And I didn't take that with a grain of salt, right? Like, you know, my brother taught me a lot on how to be relentless, right? How to be relentless, right? Like, that was a mindset, because sometimes a lot of guys, I went into the industry not thinking about closing sales, right? My job was like, all right, I'm going to be relentless. I'm going to callous my mind, like David Goggins says, right? I'm going to go out there. I'm going to see how many no's I can get, right? Because the biggest thing in this industry is, like, it's the same journey for everybody. Like, you know, it's the same road in a sense, right? It's a solar coaster, right? Everybody goes into this dealt a different deck of cards. Everybody goes into this with a different mentor, with a different mentality. But it's when you have situation, how can you change your perception, right? I don't see rejection as failure, and I don't see failure as failure. I see failure as feedback, right? How much
It is
feedback I get throughout the day, right?
just
And
yeah.
and I was, you know, when I was out there, you know, especially because that's really important, right? Especially some people that are just starting off in the industry, right? You know, they hear 25 sales a month, right? Like, that's not something that I did, even within my first 6 months in the industry, right? Like my first 6 months in the industry were just me refining myself to be the best appointment setter I could be, right? And at that time, it was like, yo, dude, how are you getting 20 appointments closed for you a month? How are you getting 15 appointments closed? And that was, within the small community of people I was working with, and I was at the time, just grinding, working, and I was working with the company, right? One of my leaders, talks a lot about the law of the lid, right? And quick story, right? There's crickets, right? Crickets jump and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Crickets, they could jump, you know, 32 inches, right? That's what they're naturally made, that's what they're genetically built to jump, right? If you put a cricket in a cup, right? He's only gonna jump to the amount that the cup is there, right? Right. And then if that cricket has kids in that those crickets, even though they don't even know it, right? Because that's the lid right there. They're only gonna jump as high as they see their parents jump, right? And at the time I was at the company, right? I was performing at a high level, but I was this cricket hitting a lid, right? Where there wasn't necessarily, how I would put it, enough growth for me, right? Taylor says it all the time. This is a
Mhm.
continuous journey, right? You're going to be on this journey. You're going to meet a lot of people, right? They're going to teach you a lot of things, right? But, the biggest thing for me was, understanding that I, have to align myself with the highest frequency possible in terms of what I want, right? And, I went throughout, I became a full-time closer, June 2021, right? After that, my first month, I did 8 sales in 2 weeks, right? Because I became a closer in the second half of July. Then in August I did 9 sales, right? And then I did something. I shifted my perception, right? I said, hold up, I'm not gonna focus on the money, right? I'm not gonna focus. I'm not gonna focus on the target, right? I'm going to focus on how many people can I impact, right? Not necessarily homeowners or people outside of me, right? Within the organization, I found people that I can actually develop and grow, right? This was big for me because you have to do the job before you get the job, right? It was like, hey, I want to be a manager at some point. I want to, develop people at some point, right? But that responsibility is not just going to be given to me, right? I have to do the job before I get the job, right? So I found some of the lowest performers in the company, right? And we were going into a 60-day blitz at the company, right, with my brother.
That's so
um,
sick.
yeah, we were going into a 60-day blitz, and at this time I had actually, I didn't mention this earlier, but I had just graduated high school, right? My senior year of high school, right? Like I think, I'm gonna be completely honest, I think I graduated with like a 2.4 GPA, right? Like my last year, my senior year of high school, I think I was there only like a month of the year, right? Because literally like during COVID, I was just not showing up. And then it got to a point where I got so obsessed with solar, I was knocking doors. People thought I was bunking school, like smoking weed, doing the wrong thing. I was bunking school, knocking doors. I was hitting the doors. That's why I wasn't at school. And when I had officially went on this blitz, right? Like I didn't even apply to any colleges. I didn't apply for financial aid. I didn't even take my SAT my senior year, right? I was already like I was like, no, this is what I'm gonna do.
I
This
had
is
a
what I'm
ton of
gonna
scholarships, bro.
right.
I just didn't want to go to college. I had the prepaid college and had scholarships, but I don't want to go
Yeah, no, that's
like to
I
traditional schooling,
if I would
typically.
have
Because I went to
continued.
Harvard Business School online and I've taken like online courses, but it's just like I didn't want to go to traditional school. I wanted to learn from people that were like having results and were at like where I wanted to be at, like in life. Because I
Right.
think that's like the best way to be able to just do it. But I don't think everyone
That's the
sees
biggest
that.
thing. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. And if I would have continued down a different path, I feel like, I would have probably been in a position where I got a ton of scholarships and stuff. But, I feel like college was never something for me, right? It's never something that made sense to me, right? Unless it's completely free and you have some sort of passion that you want to pursue, right? Like if you were born to be a doctor and you feel like that's what you have to do, right? Like I'm not gonna let anybody do surgery on me that learn how to do it off YouTube, right? Like that's just not something I'm gonna do.
Right.
But you know, I came from a family. of just like business people, right? Like just, great talkers, great, a family of empaths. And, I see my brother got a lot of success in it. We have the same blood. And, I feel like if he
versus
was
surrounding yourself with some of the top people in the world that they wherever they came from, they were able to just take themselves to a higher level and be able to be like, look, man, like you can clean up, you can change your life. Like I remember
right,
when I was making all the wrong decisions, like when I was like my freshman year of high school and my sophomore year of high school, then
right,
something kind of just like it wasn't really me. I can't take credit for it. It kind of just pushed me a different way. I started getting into personal development. I don't know what it was.
right. Right. I mean, for me, it was it's a tragedy, right? I feel like, it's those low points in your life where you realize something's fucked up about you, and you're like, dang, I gotta fix it, right? And it's like
But you
the
did.
only, you know what I mean? Right, right. And I'm still learning more and more every day, but just like just that last part where that 60-day blitz was actually one of the most crucial things. It was a 60-day blitz where we were working every single day, Monday through Sunday. There were days we were even sleeping in the office, waking up, knocking doors, right? Like it was crazy. And it was something that I didn't even like. We were signing an agreement before we committed to it that if we slacked on it, we were gonna have to walk away from the company, right? Unless it was some sort of emergency. And it was something that I didn't think I was gonna do. I didn't think I was gonna be capable of doing, right? And there was like a bunch of working out included and waking up a ton of really early and a bunch of training involved. But there's the law of 6 degrees, right? Which states that anybody in this world is 6 degrees away, right? Like Barack Obama, right? There's probably someone that I know that they know that they know that they know that no farther than 6 degrees away has some sort of relationship with Barack Obama, right? So it's like at the time I was young, right? My brother, my cousin, some of the top people I was around at the company, they had surrounded themselves around Grant Cardone, right? Around, Sam Taggart, Taylor McCarthy, Zane Jan, Chance Bronsinski, right? These big people in the company, in the industry. And
Right.
even though I didn't necessarily get to meet these people because I was only 2 degrees away, if I surrounded myself around what I had around me at the time, right, I was going to have access to at least 67% of the information, right? And that's just if I tried my best to retain it. So when I went into this blitz, right, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had just became, in the company, a team leader. So I had like, a team under me of like 5, 6 people that were going to set appointments for me and, and just do it. And, I had, one of the most important things for me, right? And this is really, really crucial. I had to find a rival, right? What pushed me to go above and beyond in this industry was finding a rival, right? Taylor says it, the 3 most important people in your life: the person you compete with, the person you mentor, right? The person that mentors you, right? And the person that you know what I mean, the person that you're trying to emulate, right? So the person you're competing with, the person you're trying to be like, and the person that mentors you, right? And at the time, I was working at a company, right? One of my best friends to this day in the industry, we work together right now. We're co-managers at Homenerds. We were working at this company. His name's Ronnie De La Rosa, right? Shout out to my boy. And he pushed me to limits that I didn't even know I had, right? Like me and him were competing, when you're competing with your boy, you guys want bragging rights, this, that, and the third. And me and him were working at the same company at the same time. And, we wanted to see who could get the most sales that month. And I remember 2 weeks into this competition, this 30-day competition, I had 4 sales, right? Ronnie had like 14. He was on track, to do like 29, 30 if he really pushed. And I was really defeated at the time. I was working with my brother. I told you, my goal was to make him proud. He was giving all the shine to Ronnie. He was hyping him up, and I was like, whoa, nah, like this doesn't stand right by me. This doesn't stand right by me. I know that I'm capable of more. And at the beginning, I was getting a lot of credit fails. I was getting a lot of go backs,
That's what
reschedules,
I
right?
had a lot of.
Right. So that's something that happens, and that's part of the game, right? So I had to really learn how to solidify my appointments, right? And that's through a lot of follow-up, right? That's through a lot of just being really certain, right? Being really clear, right? You want to be really simple, right? So people can understand what you're saying, but they could differentiate you. Okay, this guy's a little bit different. That's all it is, right? And I remember something's changed in my mind. The third week, right? The second 2 weeks of that blitz, I did 24 sales. The second 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, I did 24 sales. The first 2 weeks, I did 4, right? I ended up winning the competition. I got these Cartier glasses. I got to go on a trip or whatever. And, that next month, that was September, I did 28. And the next month, October, I did 25 sales, right? And, like I said, at that, when, I was putting up these numbers, right? Because, for me, right, I feel like, I've always been a top performer, capable of a lot, right? But there was like this complacency switch in my mind, right? Where like I would get complacent at a certain level, right? So it's like if it's just up to me and I'm a single rep, right? Once I hit 10 a month, 12 a month, maybe 15, I'm gonna call it a day, right? Like, okay, that's a pretty good amount, right? Like I'm good, right? Like I could just focus on getting these installed. But when you put a team around you, right? Because that's what I had to realize. I can only change what I become if I change what I'm around, right? And I had to surround myself around people that wanted what I wanted, that had the drive that they wanted, and also people that I could teach what I knew at the time, right? Because teaching is a level of learning, right? That's a level of learning. You learn something, you apply it, then you teach it, and it's a different level of retention, right? So I was retaining this knowledge at a different level because it wasn't asked of me, right? These were my own friends that were asking me questions, and me being I was 18 years old in this industry, right? Closing these deals, and me being a young guy, right? Going into these houses, the way that I had to like, really certify myself in these homes was by having the answer to every question, right? Some people don't have the confidence they need in these closes because they don't have the answer to every question, every objection. Sit down with yourself. What would I ask myself if I'm a homeowner, someone walks into my house, right? What are those unorthodox questions that I would say to someone to throw them off?
Whoa, what's up, guys? So you guys probably didn't notice that there was an interruption because the video was put together, but we're here. All right. So what questions would you ask yourself? I have a couple of questions for you.
Yep.
Because I know you were giving them like a strong training session, which is like really
Right,
badass.
right,
And if you have a product that you sell in the future, or if they want to reach out to have you on their show, you know, they could definitely find you at Adrian, the solar guy.
right.
That's like the Instagram right there.
Yes, sir. I love the clipboard in the back. I need to get a big one too. The
Let's
the
go. So, do you want me to ask a couple of questions, or do you want to like add something to what
Yeah,
you were
yeah. I
adding?
mean,
Like you were
I
like
mean, you could
questions you'd ask yourself. I have a question for the insurance companies. Like,
right. Oh, okay. So yeah, so that was that was a big part of my journey where I was just beginning to ask myself the questions that I would, ask a rep if he walked into my house, right? Really stepping outside of the box, right? Kind of like, really building an obsession for what I wanted, right? And that was a really big thing for me at the time because I had nothing else better to do but knock doors, right? I had nothing like there was nothing else going for me, right? Like if I didn't make this work, there was nothing. I didn't have a plan B, right? And sometimes when you have a plan B, you create this safety net under you, right? This safety net is then breeds a self-limiting belief in your mind where it's like, hey, I might not think I can take it this far. I don't think I can achieve this. And it's fine if I don't because I got this to back it up, right? I never thought that. It was always like, hey, I'm gonna make this work. As I'm gonna make this work and it's gonna work, right? Like especially when you transition into closing sales, right? Sometimes, over here in my market, installations sometimes take 2 months, 3 months, right? So it's like, this job has a lot of money in it, but then you have to put yourself in a position where like how can I delay instant gratification for a larger payout on the back end, right? How can I callous my mind to not focus on feeding myself today but more focus on feeding myself in the future, right? Because then there's more gratitude in my attitude. And when when I started doing that, that's when I really, it kind of just changed the way I saw it all, because it wasn't, it made me realize like the best things in life aren't easy, right? The best things in life are hard, right? You got to get ready. It's tough, right? So you got to get prepared for it. And the result you're going to get on the back end is more worth it, right? Those Anything in life that makes you feel good for a short limited amount of time typically doesn't reap a big reward after, right? I realized that today I sow the seed, right? And tomorrow I reap the fruit, right? So if today I have to plant the seed, when you plant the seed, that's you making the sacrifice, right? And I realized that in order for me to really make this work, I had to sacrifice some stuff, right? I had to, sacrifice some friends, right? I had to surround myself around people that had what I wanted, right? And I had to, like, really just put my head into the game, put my head into the sauce, right? And it didn't start off with solar, right? It started off with these books, right? Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Robert Kiyosaki, right? Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill, right? The 21 Laws of Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, right? John C. Maxwell, right? Like all these
Waxwell.
books, Waxwell, I'm bugging, right? John C. Maxwell, but all these books that I had to, I didn't like reading, right? I didn't like reading, but I realized like, hey, if I can read something that's going to make me a better person, right? And at the end of the day, I'm the best investment that I'm going to make for myself, right? Then I'm going to actually retain this information, right? So I started to change the way I was perceiving the information in these books, right? And thinking more about ways how I can apply it, right? And I remember that a big mental shift for me, right, was when I started to look into, I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Proctor, right? And he talks a lot about shifting your paradigm, right? A paradigm is a multitude of habits, right? There's laws of the universe, there's laws of thermodynamics, laws of math, there's these laws that govern the universe, right? The first law of the universe is the law of vibration, right? Everything is vibrating, everything is moving. We have these atoms, they're never still, right? All these atoms are vibrating at these frequencies, right? When you're getting all these things in life that you don't want, all this negativity, all this toxicity, all this poverty, all this illness, right? It's because you're attracting it, right? Whether it's unconsciously or consciously, right? And a lot of these things were really important for me, right? So I realized, okay, what is a paradigm? How can I shift my paradigm to be more aligned with the things that I want? Well, paradigm's a multitude of habits, right? And what are my habits? Okay, I'm not eating what I'm supposed to be eating. I'm not waking up at the time I'm supposed to be waking up. I'm not ingesting the information I'm supposed to be ingesting. I'm not hanging around the people I'm supposed to be hanging around. I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, right? I'm not reading. So then the good thing about today's day and age is we have every resource we could possibly have. We have Google, we have the internet, we have YouTube, infinite resources, right? So I literally Googled how to become a better person, right? I Googled how to become a millionaire, right? I Googled what was a millionaire's morning routine, right? Grant Cardone's morning routine. How, Eric Thomas morning routine, right? Tony Robbins morning routine, right? And I realized these routines, these are their habits. That's the multitude of habits, right? These people are vibrating on a frequency that I want to vibrate on, right? All these rich people, all these successful people, right? You're not going to hear somebody say it was easy. You're not going to hear somebody say it was fast, right? Especially if it's actually meaningful achievement. Um, and I realized that I had to change these habits, right? So it's like, first I started off removing the people in my life that weren't adding me any value, right? Because if nobody, first you have to surround yourself around people that add value to you, right? Then now that you have value, now you can add value to others, right? And
The
certain
best way
people,
to do that is the person that you become, like in the process, because then you're gonna
exactly,
be able to like maintain relationships. You're gonna be able to do more. Like that's an area
exactly.
that, yeah,
And a really good book too,
that,
How
that
to
that's
Win
an
Friends
area
and
that I've gotten
Influence
really
People.
good at building relationships. I have a sales is really easy. I think it's like once you systemize everything, like you can duplicate everything, and then just a lot of practice and
Exactly.
repetition.
Exactly. Good leaders, right, make plans. Excellent leaders have systems, right? So that's when you systemize things, you definitely can double up more. But when that happened for me, that's all it was, right? Like I started, I didn't know Taylor. I had him on YouTube. I was watching him on YouTube. I was watching him go door to door. I was like, yo, this guy's a millionaire and he's still going door to door, right? Like that's how you know that that's where the personal development is. And over time, right, it's like when you start going to the gym, you start lifting some weights, right? You remember when you were skinny. Now 9 months later, you're like, whoa, like I'm kind of shredded, right? So it's like I remember when I sucked at the job. I remembered all the personal development I was getting on it. I looked back at who I was at that time, right? And I was like, wow, like I became, something. I don't know if it's what I want to be, but I became something and I was nothing, right? And that was really key in allowing me to have a vision for the next 5 to 7 years, right? Because then I realized, like, wait a minute, I have this opportunity right now. I'm 18 years old, right? And I could, I could go 50%, I could go 10%, I could go party, I could be around the wrong people, I could go spend the money
Right.
on the wrong things, or I could sacrifice these next 5 to 7 years to be where I want to be in the next 5 to 7 years, right? Because 5 to 7 years from now, I'm gonna be 5 to 7 years older, anyways, right?
Right. The time's gonna pass anyways. I mean, you might as well just multiply everything that's gonna get you towards your vision and your destiny and your purpose. I think a lot of it is multiplying your talents. Because you're gonna have
Exactly.
things that are unique to you, and then you're gonna have dreams that are like somehow if you can figure out how to get those two together, and then like you have fulfillment, you're joyful, you're happy, and you're giving it all around freely. And it's something that's like it has a grace to it. That's why it was just it was just like wow, and then kind of scaling that. I'm so curious, how did you get to 20 to 25 sales a month? Is this like the process? Because I'm on KnockStar, I'm studying it more now.
Right.
I have like my script from like the company that they gave me,
Right.
and it's like I definitely like want to do that because when I had an old phone, when I had a high-powered sales role on the telephone, we'd sell typically to like just giant companies, medium companies and small mom and pop
You were
shops.
selling. So what were you selling?
So it was telecom. So sometimes they'd have like hundreds of lines on their account,
Right.
and we would typically add lines to their account and lower their bill through being an AT&T, like not a third party, but we had a contract, kind of like how Vivint has a contract and is a dealer. We were
Right.
like we were like we had some sort of a contract at the time with them, and it allowed us to be able to help them with their bill. And sometimes you get me, if they were on 3G, we'd bump them up. At the time, 4G was the fastest. 4G was more, but they saw the value. So it's like I definitely like, was making like 30. I finished with like 40 sales a month the last month, and my numbers were just getting higher.
Right.
And how do I, like I've been trying real hard at this solar job, and it's like I want to make 20, 25 deals a month. Like
Right. So my friend. I mean, are you? So do you go door to door?
yes, I do day to day.
Okay, perfect. So you go door to door, and then do you do right now? Like, are you the company you're with? Like, are you on a team, or do you have a team? Do you like have a manager? Are you a manager? Like, what's your role right now in the company? Are you like a rep?
So right now I'm just like a rep, but I'm
Okay.
self-genning. I'm closing my own deals finally,
Right.
and it's kind of like like everything is kind of like tying in. Like I'm in a spirit where like it's all coming together. I have Sam Taggart's the University, I have Knockstar. I've gotten pretty good with this presentation. Like if I just knock every single day, typically I've got like a set or a close. But it's just like I kind of want to I kind of want to get it like from like you like your process of how you got to 2025 sales.
Right.
Get me?
Right. So I mean, like that process, it had a lot of failure, right? I didn't really,
Because
if
I've
you're
had
only
so many
doing.
deals that have just failed credit or something. And
So
it's
I mean,
just
if you
like,
fail
yeah,
credit, that's the wrong timing, right? Like I've had a month, like a year ago, a year and a half ago, I did like 8 sales, 6 sales, and I had a lot of credit fails. But
that got me so sad.
ultimately, man, like how much families do
Because
you
they
feel
went
like
through the process and they wanted to do it.
but how many families do you feel like you're sitting down with every single month,
Every single month. Like
or like in the
I
last month?
I just came from a blitz. I had in between like 2 weeks of work, I had probably like 5 sets. They sat down with two of them. One of them I could have closed myself, but I didn't have access to my sun run. Two of them, out of those two, one the closer couldn't close them because they sat down. I did my job, and
Right.
the other one closed.
Right. So, I mean, bro, do you
That's
like
not
that? Like that
2025.
company? That company, do you like it? How do you get with this company? Is
I
it just
got
something
this.
you kind of like? You just been with them for a long time, or
I got throughout this company because of James Castellanos. I had worked for him under and Vivint, and he gave me a phone call, and I went ahead and transitioned to Sunder. And I liked that Adam Webb at the time was the CRO, which he is currently the CRO at Sunder. I had him on my
right,
podcast,
right,
and I'm here now, and I've it's I'm really happy throughout the entire process of everything that I've been able to learn throughout the company. I've been around a lot of reps that have made 100 to 100, to 200 sales. Some of them like when they were selling alarms, and a lot of the reps are doing really, really good here. And
and how many like do you have
and
like
I've been
meetings
doing the
and stuff?
best that I've could. You got me probably since around like last October, last November, and I've been training throughout KnockStar. Like on light, we have Lights VVT, so they can track my reports. I had trained some of the most, and I'd go out and knock, and I've just been trying to figure out everything that I could on my part. Like,
Right,
yeah, like just to the best of my ability. And you know, I had this 1 month where I had probably like two, three, 4 sits, and in solar, you get me when you can't help three, four families that you sit down with. I didn't like that, and I took like a month where I was just like studying, and I realized that like I was really bad. On my part, I could have just grinded it out against the grain, and I would have gotten better. Which is one of the things that I did at my other job when I was on the phone that got me really good, and I was in an epiphany, like at least for myself, just on a personal level. And then now I'm just kind of going out like against the grain more, and because that was just like 1 month, but that 1 month, those 30 days, it was a big deal. And then I just came from the next blitz, and then I knocked. Uh, yeah, I did just came from like the blitz like a week ago, and I don't know, like when I don't know when I got back, but it was like recently. And then Tuesday I'm gonna knock again. Yeah,
right,
'cause I don't work
right.
Sundays or Mondays.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
So I mean,
like on the doors,
on the doors. Okay, yeah. So I mean,
and I'm doing
I
it from like
really
12 to 8.
from 12 to 8. Okay,
Yeah,
so I
and I'll
feel
stay
like
till 9 for the appointments. Like I'll
okay.
just stay a little
Do
later.
you guys have like meetings and stuff?
Sort of, like sort of, yeah, but it's just like we'll have like sort of, but like I'm kind of remote for the most part.
So like, are the meetings through Zoom?
Um, they'll be like in person, but they'll be like farther away from me, and like
It's
I
hard
don't.
for you to get there.
It's hard for me to get there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I mean, bro, I feel like, like I said, like I originally started my story saying that I was working with my brother, right? And like I decided to leave that company, just for personal reasons with family, and I transitioned and aligned myself with Taylor with this company Homenerds, right? And the really most important thing they tell you is to find your tribe. That's what Taylor says, find your tribe, right? And here, that's why I was telling you those questions, because I work, we have Zooms with Taylor like every week, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's a part of it, like I've gone on incentives, like my incentive, like, I go out there and I see him and stuff, and we go and spend a good time. But like at the end of the day, man, like, like sometimes the environment you're in is gonna, is only gonna like, do you knock by yourself all the time?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So some people, I like to knock by myself a lot as well, right? But that's the thing where like that's what it was for me, right? Like if like there was a point where it was like, I wasn't performing at a high level, and I realized that was because I was only going out the days that I wanted to go out, right? The schedule I had made for myself was like a schedule that like, unless I was really self-disciplined, I wasn't gonna abide by. And realistically, I'm a young guy, right? I don't have as much self-discipline as I want. And when I joined this company, right, Taylor says, find your tribe, right? Like, I'm also a manager right now of, a team of 15 people right now that I organically put together. I've recruited. These are all my friends, right? Like these aren't people from Indeed. These are all people that I've met myself that I, basically sold them the vision of solar the same way I close a sale, right? So it's like, closing a deal, right? Closing, setting, right? Like like to me, it's an art, right? Like literally, like I consider myself one of the most obsessed people ever, right? Like, and I'm obsessed. Like, I mean, realistically, you just told me you don't work Sundays and Mondays. I work Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays and even right now, the only time I take time off is when I take time off, right? Like my birthday was August 17th. I worked on my birthday. I got 2 sales on my birthday. I felt like if I didn't get a sale on my birthday, it wasn't a birthday, right? So it's like I'm completely obsessed, right? Like, and I'm in an environment right now where, like, I got to the point where I'm at right now, where I'm a manager for a team. Like, right now I'm in the office, so we have an entire office, and these guys rely on me. So it's like I can't not go to work tomorrow if I just don't feel like it, right? Like, if I just feel like staying in, right? Like tomorrow I have a meeting at 11 o'clock. I have to be there. I have to have the content ready to give to these guys, right? Understand, I'm 19 years old. Some of the people that work, I manage, right? These people are 40 years old, 30 years old, 21 years old, 26 years old, right? Like, and all these people understand that the only difference between me and them, I just started before them, right? There's just a little bit more that I know than them, and I'm just passing down the information, right? It's just a teacher student relationship, the same relationship I have with the leadership in my company, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, and like I said, like they tell you to find your tribe, right? Sometimes you can't find a tribe, right? Sometimes you have to build a tribe, right? And that's what I did, right? Because when I first worked with this company for home, I'm from Rhode Island, man. Like nobody starts a company in Rhode Island, right? Like you go to California, you go to maybe New York, Boston, Florida, Texas, Colorado. You don't go to Rhode Island, right? I'm a small kid from Rhode Island. I hit up this guy, Taylor McCarthy. I said, listen, man, I know how to close sales. And I feel like, if you have an opportunity for you, like if you have an opportunity for me, I'd love to take it. He hit me up. He sent me a guy's number. I made the phone call, transitioned into the company. They told me, hey, guy, they said, listen, Adrian, right? Like, we love what you're selling. We love what you're saying. You seem like you have yourself together. You seem like you know how to speak. You seem like you know how to present yourself, right? But, Rhode Island, we have limited resources there, right? Like, we're a company based out of Florida. The company I work for, they're based out of Florida, right? So they said, listen, dude, like, unless you can move to Florida, it's going to be really difficult for us because we have limited resources in Rhode Island, let alone anywhere near there, right? And I said, hey, listen, you guys are with Taylor McCarthy. You guys are doing something big here. I want to be a part of it, right? At the time, I was like, listen, I know how to close sales. Put me, like, just give me a platform where I can produce and I'll do it, right? They had an installer that did installs here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts, right? I just had meetings through Zoom, right? And at the beginning of this year, it was a lonely road, and on that lonely road, I wasn't producing at a high level, right? Like I am now, right? Because like I said, it's easy not, especially you're up north, right? I'm going into winter right now. It's gonna get cold. It's super cold. You know what I mean? Like we're about to get a ton of snow, a ton of blizzards. I mean, you guys get hurricanes too, so it kind of balances and offsets it. But it gets really hard to work out here in the cold, and a lot of people don't make it. And I decided that I can look at the opportunity with this company as like, hey, I'm not gonna close a lot of sales because I have limited resources, right? It's gonna be hard for me to learn more because I can't literally physically see these people in person, right? It's gonna be hard for me to excel because there's no other people that work with me that are in the state as I am, right? So I'll never see them. Or I could see it as like, hey, this is an opportunity for me to build something great with the best people in the industry: Taylor McCarthy, Kenny Crosby, Suki Singh, right? Joshua McCarthy, right? Like this is the leadership in my company that are putting together something just completely great and immaculate. And I realized that if I can put myself in a position where I can build something, right, that's gonna have an impact not only on the people around me, but the industry and the entire world, right? Then I'm gonna do it, right? And I also have as much creativity and freedom because they said, listen, dude, like we have limited resource for you, right? We can't even hire people at the time for you. So I mean, if you could find some people to do this, just do it, right? I recruited one person, right? That one person, I got left with 4 people, right? It's just the law of doubles. Then 6 people, right? Then I started recruiting more people, right? These are people that have absolutely no sales experience, right? Taken from zero, to hero, right? If they allow me to, and they, put in the time and they commit to it, right? For the entire time, because this job is all about, how much time do you put into it, right? The best way I would describe this job is the law of equivalent exchange, right? Like the amount of hours you put into it, right, are going to amount to the amount of money you make at the end. But now the amount of intentional hours that you make into it will have a more intentional outcome, right? Because I can work 8 hours out there, but if I'm only putting in 10% or I'm bullshitting or I'm not really out there, then it makes sense, right? And the enthusiasm matters too. Like, there's a guy that could knock from 12 to 8, right? He could hit the same exact doors that I hit, right? But if I'm talking to these people with a different enthusiasm, right, transferring my energy to them, right, is gonna be that much more impactful. And you know what I mean? Like I've done this a lot, right? And like, I've done, over 300 sales, right? Like right now, this week alone, I have like 3 installs, right? And it's all about what I put in, right? And I realized that it wasn't necessarily just about me working, but also about like, hey, like how can I become a beast? How can I become a master? Right? Like not at the same time, like a lot of the top guys, like there's a limited amount of top guys in the industry that know Spanish and English, right? Like I 50% of my sales are in Spanish, man. And I never got training on how to close in Spanish, right? Like I'm just, that was just my second language. I just transferred my thoughts, right, into another language, right? And it worked, right? So I realized like if I can double down, right? Like I said on the talk with Taylor, right? Like I know that before I got into this, there were already people that had years of experience on me, right? Years and years of experience, right? But if the average person is doing 4 sales a month, right? And I could put myself in a position to do 20 sales a month, right? If the average person is sitting down with, let's say 20 people a month, right? And I can sit down with, 60 people a month to 100 people a month, right? Talk to as many people as possible, then I can literally shorten the amount of time, right? Because this job's all about experience, right? How much apples have you touched, right? How much burgers have you flipped, right? And, it's about the contact. It's about the contact. Talk to as many people as possible. Listen, like, I'm always talking about this. I'm the kid at the family events that's like, oh my God, Adrian's here again to talk about the solar panels, right? I'm the kid my senior year of high school. The teachers, when they saw me going down the highway, they would walk the other way because they're like, oh, this kid's going to try to sell me panels again, right? I'm the kid that if I take a Uber, I'm talking to my Uber about solar. I'm the kid that if I'm grabbing food, I'm talking to whoever I feel like is a homeowner about solar because there's a lead everywhere. There's money everywhere. You got to always be closing, right? And we had like the solar sells itself. The entire time I'm not selling solar, I'm selling me, right? People are going to do this, right? Because they want to be with someone that has their best interest in mind, right? A homeowner asked me, hey, how are you a little bit different? Well, Mr. Homeowner, I consider myself the best of the best in the industry, right? That's what I consider myself because I have no self-limiting belief. After years of being in this industry, I aligned myself with this company because I feel like they not only have my best interest in mind, right? But also the customer's best interest in mind, right? I am going to be the person that takes this project from beginning to end, and I'm going to put 120% of my effort into it. I'm going to manage this project. I'm going to exceed your expectations, and I promise you that my job here is to under promise and over deliver 12 out of 10 of the times, right? Understand that today we just spoke for 2 hours. We spent the last 2 hours trying to find every single reason why this didn't work, and we figured out that it did, right? So all we're gonna and this is the conviction that I carry with myself throughout every single presentation, every single close, because every single night I close myself, right? How am I going to convince myself every single night, right? To continue on this journey, right? To not give up, right? To realize that this is not something that, that I'm just doing for the next 60 days, for the next year, for the next 10. This is a lifelong journey, right? Whether it's solar, we're in sales, right? We're in the personal development industry where every day you're getting 1% better, right? You're meeting more and more people. And that's what it is now. I mean, dude, like if I don't do, 20, a high number of sales a month, man, it's like, there's a lot of people on my team that, that didn't eat, right? If I'm not performing at a high level, right, then I'm not leading by example, right? I'm letting myself down, right? I'm letting my mom down, right? Because I told her to take a shot. Believe in me, right? Like, I'm not gonna go to college. I'm gonna do this, right? So it's like I can't make this not work. There's no other option, right? And every single night I sell myself on that. I wake up in the morning and I have a different type of conviction, right? It's not about like, hey, am I gonna knock today because it's Sunday? It's like, hey, Sunday nobody's knocking. I know everybody's watching football. I'm outside. You know what I mean? Mondays, I know everybody hates Mondays. I'm outside, right? Saturdays, I know all my friends are going out. That means they're not working. I'm outside, right? It's like how it's I'm trying to dominate my competition, right? And I'm early in the industry, right? They don't really know about me yet, but they're gonna know, right?
Yeah, they
Because
are.
you know what I mean? Like I'm coming in hot, and you know what I mean. Like I'm aligning myself with the right people, right? Adrian, how'd you get to where you are? Because I found the people that had what I wanted. I wasn't scared to ask them for an opportunity, and I just stuck it in their shadow, right? Rule number one, right, of power. Law number one: don't outshine the master. Right, but you have to find the master to teach you everything, right? Become an apprentice, find a mentorship, right? Literally, you listen to some of these motivational speakers, dude. Email 1,000 millionaires. Tell them that you'll work for them for free. That's all. That's the sauce right there. Somebody's gonna say, "Yeah, let's do it," right? And they're gonna teach you a trade. I'm in door to door. I talk to people every day. You don't know how much people talk to you. Hey, dude, you're so well spoken. Like, why don't you come work for me? If I was doing like pest controller, like something that wasn't really reaping benefit or something that I didn't like, I probably would have been found a better opportunity because I'm in solar and I love the people I work with and I love my travel. I'm like, nah, man, I love what I do, right? But you go into my phone right now, you go into my, my pipeline, right? I have a person that virtually does anything. I got a guy that I help go solar that does roofs, that cuts hair, right? That babysits kids, that sells cars, that sells conditioner, that owns a shop, right? So it's like I'm building my network, right? So it's like I'm doing 25 sales a month. It's like, yeah, I want to make money. Yeah, I want to help them go solar. But it's like, how can I find 25 people this month, right? How can I add value to their life by helping them go solar? And in exchange, they're going to add value to my life with something that they're, sometimes I people find people that won't, right? But I find, I sit down with a ton of people that are successful, that own businesses, right? That are places that I want to be, that know people that I wish I knew, right? And I build that relationship with them, right? Because, I'm doing them a great service and I'm allowing myself to build a long time friendship, right? Get myself a lot of referrals, but also, the person I helped go solar 2 years ago can help me get a roof for my house next month, right? Like if that's something that I
Right.
want, right? And I always think about the longevity in it, right? Because I'm in this for the long run, right? That's why I'm so obsessed with this because I'm in it for the long run, right? And it's like, I'm already thinking, hey, Tom Hopkins is passing down his torch to Taylor. Who's Taylor going to pass the torch down to? Right? You know what I mean? Right? Like whether it's me or whether it's not me, it's fine, right? Because I'm not here to prove anything to anybody, but that's something that fuels my mind, right? Like, ultimately my goal is to be some sort of speaker, some sort of motivational speaker down the line when I have more achievements and more accolades under my belt.
Dude,
But
20 to 25 sales a month is huge, bro. That's like some of the top people in the industry. That's I mean, I think at that point I would take I take a couple of leadership classes if you because you're already a really good leader and kind of just find out like how to scale if you're not already scaling because that's huge. That's
right,
that's 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 and then a team of people being able to do that, that's massive in solar.
right.
That's that I'm just that's a big deal. That's not to be downplayed at all.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
That's
I'm right
that's
now
that's some of the
taking
top in the
leadership
industry. I don't I
classes.
don't I don't that's just a lot. That's like that's a lot. Like I don't think I have any personal reps on my team that I'm a part of that they do that I'm aware of that I know that I've
Right,
seen. That's
right,
like I'll see like maybe like two, three, four, five sales. Like I don't know, like but like that consistently 20 to 25. Like it's I don't see that all the time. Like that's
right.
at the very top of the industry specifically and like sharing. Does that make sense? That's a
Nah, it
big
does.
deal. That's
And
not to be like downplayed of what I said. Forthcoming, and being able to just speak that to like everybody. Um, It's a big deal, man. And especially you get me when you're able to like make so much cash, just kind of helping them save money is a really
Right.
tremendous thing as is.
Right, that's really important. You know what I mean? I come from a community of, young kids that don't have that much financial literacy, that much financial education. So, the biggest thing for me is as a young guy, I've achieved a lot, but it's nothing close to what I plan on doing, right? It allows me to reel in a lot of people that could resonate with my story, that could resonate with my journey, right? And I try to be as relatable as possible, and impact as much people as possible, man. Right? Like, you don't want to be on your deathbed, and the ghosts surrounding you are the ghosts of the people you didn't help, right? Or the ghosts of the things you didn't do, right? Or
Right.
the ideas you didn't bring into fruition, right? So it's like I want to be really intentional, right? And every opportunity that I get to help somebody that crosses my path, right, to double their income, to 10x their income, right, for them to become the ultimate version of themselves, right? I don't take that lightly. I don't take it with a grain of salt, right? That's something I cherish, right? And like people don't care what you know till they know that you care, right? So it's like that's
There's this book on in the Bible with what you
right,
shared, and it was the Paul was a servant of Jesus Christ, right?
right,
The thing with it is just that in his account before he died, and like one of his last, in I think it's in Romans, Paul, one of the last things that he said is that he was so happy to God that he's ready to go home because he finished everything that God had put for him to do, like in his destiny and his purpose, while they were like together on earth and helping that person, share the good news with other people, with what
right,
they were assigned with, and making sure that everybody in the world lives like that, because you can't be what you're supposed to be unless they are what they're supposed to be, but putting God first and knowing that everything else it works itself out through faith and through works, of course, because you need your works. But because of this collectively, you know, being able to just like be the very best version of yourself, and then knowing that you accomplished everything that you were supposed to accomplish before you passed away, whether it was changing the world or whatever that was for the individual. That's a very
right.
like, I don't think everybody sees that, but that's like something of like the righteous, and just you're a very righteous person, you know.
I
Uh,
appreciate
Yo, bro, can I work with you?
it. Oh, come over. Home Nerds is definitely a place that I love, man. I mean, I could definitely point you in the right direction. And you could come over here work with Taylor, bro. That's what it is, man. We would love to, and they like the team, the company. You wouldn't work directly with me. I mean, you'd see me. I'm going down to Florida. I might go do a blitz down there for the end of the year because it's gonna get cold up here. But there's great leadership. We have teams spread out through Florida, Miami, Sarasota, Gulf Coast, Tampa, and you could definitely affiliate and align yourself. Everybody's great energy. There's a lot of growth here, man, and this company's this is it right here, and this is the next big thing for sure. You know what I mean? 100%.
All right. Well, I'm gonna finish up the podcast.
Okay, perfect, bro.
I'm just gonna stop it here. Is there any like
Perfect.
thing that you want to like finish it up with in the next like 2, 3 minutes, and then I'm just gonna stop the recording.
Um, you know, yeah, I'll do like a little, like a little outro. You're recording already?
Yeah, it's been recording.
Oh, okay, no, my fault. Yeah, man, and I really appreciate the opportunity to hop on. This is, testimony to anybody out there that doesn't think this works, man. Coming from another young guy to young guy or young guy to older person doesn't matter. And this is one of those industries, doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter what you know, doesn't matter what you don't know. It's just about how coachable you could be, how much sacrifice you could take to really get what you want, and it's going to work for you. And ultimately, even this relationship I'm building now with Noel, it's definitely going to go far, and it's just because of this simple conversation we had, right? So write that list down. Start your journey simply by one Google search, one YouTube search. How can I change my life? How can I become the best version of myself? And I swear to God, you'll go down a rabbit hole that you won't regret. And listen, as you're gonna see me up there at the top. That's it. That's all I'm gonna tell you. All right.
Well, as a man thinketh, so is he. So,
Yes.
and when you put that kind of love, it never fails. So
Right.
just like it is, man. It's just like these beliefs, they just kind of work out afterwards. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, this is what we believe in will make itself real, and it's more than that too. But Adrian is extremely successful. Guy's like 20 years old, 19 years old. Was just 18, 19 years old,
Yeah.
making 20 to 25 sales a month. I mean, wow. You know, we've had a lot of great episodes, but this is definitely one of the favorite ones that I've had in a little bit.
Wow. I
And
appreciate it.
it was definitely legit. It was definitely real. And check out the rest of the podcast. You got me. And this is Mindset Success and Social Dynamics, Life by Design. And then you guys can check out Adrian at Adrian the Solar Guy. And you know, we thank you guys for the opportunity of wanting to level up and just being in good company and good spirits.
Yes,
So
sir.
thank you guys in Jesus' name, and God bless.
God bless.